I'm Chad Malden. I am the founder of Bombdog Studios, which is creating M.A.V. It's a third-person mech game. I come from a background of about 10 years in AAA game development, and I started my own indie game studio because I'm really passionate about where I think games can be going without having to kind of go with a freemium monetization model for everything about them.
So, in a nutshell, what kind of game in total are we talking about?
Yeah, M.A.V. is a third-person mech game that really kind of rewards high-skill gameplay and allows a lot of customization. So you can build your mech up from, like almost 500 different parts. So there's kind of a different part for everybody. You can build it out, with whatever you want. It matches your play style. And it really rewards high skill gameplay because each individual part has its own health. So, where you place your shots and the tactics that you use and the teamwork that you use for the overall battle strategy has a lot of impact on the gameplay.
Why did you choose to make a game like this?
I think uh, I felt like a lot of games were getting dumbed down. They were catering to kind of the lowest common denominator, and there was a very big narrowing of what we would call the skill band, where everybody kind of plays the same, whether you're really good or really bad. Whether it be to just like randomization or all of these other things. So I kind of wanted to get back to kind of like the basics of like a game where you could really, like the old, Unreal or even like Halo 1, where like if you're really good at the game, like you were good and you would be able to kind of dominate. And I wanted to kind of get back to that type of a gameplay. It's almost a little bit like a throwback, but not to the point where it's retro.
Did the game become what you originally planned it to become?
I think it's kind of morphed a little bit. It's expanded out quite a bit, and then it's shrunk in some ways. As like most indie game developers, whenever they start off, it's gonna be like this big open world MMO with this random weapons and everything like that. But once you kind of start getting into the implementation of certain systems and designs, you're like, well, that's actually really not a good idea in practicality. So it's definitely changed over time from the original, but it's still very true to kind of what I set out to make.
So you basically had a kind of other game because you had a bigger idea than you had made in the end.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say bigger idea because I would say that the game has grown out quite a bit. But I think one of the core changes is that whenever I originally set out to make the game, I imagined that basically no part would be the same. So there'd be a lot of almost like a loot system like Diablo or Borderlands, where you get these kind of salvaged parts and the stats would all be kind of a little bit different. Um, and I realized that that's not, in line with me wanting to make a game that had a high skill ceiling and had competitive multiplayer to it. That make it very difficult to build a mech. Also, if all of your parts were slightly different, like you're trying to make a set of four guns and they all have slightly different firing speeds or something like that. So I ended up kind of pulling that system back in. There's still a whole lot of different parts, but they're all kind of more finely tuned, and so you can have more than one of the same part and everything.
What inspired you to become an indie game developer?
I think a lot of it was just that I felt like I had some ideas that were worth exploring, and I wanted the world to see them. Whenever I was in AAA, I got to be a part of a lot of cool projects, and I got to have a lot of influence on those projects, but they were never fully mine. This one allowed me, and being an indie game developer, gave me the opportunity to say, this is me. This is what I can do. This is what I represent. Whether that's good or bad, at least this is me. And that I think was really what was the original desire behind it.
So this is your first game.
This is my first game as an indie developer, yes. This is not my first game as a game developer, though.
Now, because you worked in AAA before, right?
Right. I have about half a dozen, maybe eight published titles for consoles and PC.
That's really nice. For what platforms are you intending to release M.A.V?
So it's on Windows right now, Windows PC right now. Kind of in order that I'm looking to expand that out would be Linux and Mac next. And then a little bit further down the line, I would really like to expand out to the consoles. But that's kind of, right now I'm focusing on just Windows so that, I can focus on the development effort, and then I'll expand out as we get closer to completion.
What do you think is your best attitude in life?
I think the best attitude in life, really by far, is positivity. And I know that that's kind of really lame sounding, but life is full of a lot of pitfalls. And I think that if you don't maintain a positive outlook, always trying to look for the silver lining in things, it's very easy to find yourself lost in those pitfalls. There's always a way out, there's always another option, and having that kind of positive attitude and being open and looking for what those options are, I think is really key, both in life and in game development.
What was your day-to-day process in making this game?
Day-to-day process changes a whole lot depending on what aspect I'm working on, but I'm a little bit of a workaholic, so I tend to work a lot. So day-to-day process now, I spend a lot of time first thing, start up in the morning, have stand up with the team, quick meeting, see where everybody's at, what they're working on, check on tasks, make sure everybody has stuff that they're working on, that they're not unblocked. Take a look at kind of the social aspects of the game, the community, see how they're doing. Try and tweet and post things to Facebook that as much as I can about the game, about what's happening, and then I kind of dive in. Kind of the afternoon is core time for me to check up with our artists because of the time zone differences, see how they're doing, getting them on task, providing art, direction, any kind of paint overs that need to happen for any changes. Then from there, I'll kind of jump into code or content creation, depending. Right now, I'm primarily in code, so pulling in things. And then I have the website that I kind of check on periodically as well. And then kind of after dinner, getting into the nighttime is whenever I kind of get my core stride. Everybody else is kind of asleep. And so I can kind of just focus on whatever my tasks are that I really want to get done for the day, and work on those at night until I get too tired, where I start writing bad code, and then I go to sleep.
So you basically come out of your bed and then you go back to sleep because you only work in between.
Yeah. I make sure and get some family time in there, and I take lots of little breaks, little walks. I've gotten really good at making coffee, so I'll make quite a few coffees during the day. But yeah, it's definitely eat, sleep, and breathe it.
Wow. Well, good that your family gets some time either.
Yeah, they've been a big part of the whole process. So I try and make sure that they're included as much as possible, and I'm always trying to help out and make sure that I'm available. I don't like to isolate myself into the work, so that's why I tend to do a lot of the core work that requires my undivided attention later at night, whenever everybody else is asleep, so that interruptions won't have
Happen.
a large cost to them.
Will the day-to-day process be the same for potential future games you make?
Hopefully not. Hopefully my data process will kind of taper down as we hire more and more people and they get ramped up. But for a large part of this, I've done everything by myself, and so it required a lot of myself.
What were your biggest inspiration to make this game?
Biggest inspiration, I've always been a huge mech fan, but in particular, there was a release title for Xbox 360 called Chrome Hounds, that I was a huge fan of, put thousands of hours into. Was a big fan of that. Also, a lot of the Armored Core, which is actually made by From Software, who made Chrome Hounds as well, known for Dark Souls now, but back in the day, they were big mech guys. And, also, all the other mech games that have been out. So, been just kind of a big fan. In fact, my first job in the industry, I went to Day One Studios, who made Mech Assault for the original Xbox, in hope that I would be able to work on a mech game, but it wasn't in the cards for me at that point in time.
Well, sometimes you can't get everything you want.
Mm-hmm.
What makes this game different from others?
I think a lot of what makes it different is when comparing it to other action games, that a lot of times the surprise element, kind of that high alpha damage, is really key. This one, it's not. The kind of what we call the time to kill somebody is significantly longer. So the actual battle itself, whenever you encounter another player or an AI opponent, tends to be a little bit more nuanced. There's a lot more using cover in the middle of a battle, trying to make quick trade-off decisions of, do I shoot the cockpit to try and get the kill, or do I try and pull off some guns to reduce their damage output on me? And then a lot of teamwork. So I think a lot of the games out there right now that involve a lot of teamwork, stuff like Rainbow Six Siege, or even the game Squad, they have a really high teamwork element, but they have a very short time to kill. So it's like one shot can kill an opponent. And then some of the games that have a really high time to kill, specifically, I'm drawing a blank right now, but M.A.V, I think, is unique in that it combines both of those. So like, you can actually extend out your life, even if you're outmatched in a battle, by how you're positioning yourself, and use teamwork and kind of draw them closer to your teammates, have your teammates come over, and it quickly turn the tide of a battle. Where in a lot of other games, if you found yourself outmatched, like you are light and you came across a heavy, that would be a very short encounter. In M.A.V, it doesn't have to be. And I think that's very unique. And I think it's also very unique to give players the amount of freedom in the type of build that they create. I think whenever you're talking about like the mechs that you build and kind of the kit that you enter in the battle with, it's more in line with what you'd expect from like an MMO character creation, just in terms of a mech this time.
What do you think is the most interesting part of the game?
Most interesting part of the game, the game is a whole lot about blowing up other robots, and so I think that is definitely the most interesting part. I particularly love to play in a way that identifies weaknesses. So I think I'm going to kind of rewind a little bit. I think the most interesting part of the game is actually building your own mech. Because where you place your weapons, how you place parts, and everything like that has a big impact into the actual gameplay. I think that's what the most interesting part is. It's also the most creative. You can create stuff that looks, phenomenal. You can create stuff that's super ugly but very practical. And so I think that's where a lot of the interest come, and that carries over into the actual battle. What I was saying before is one of my favorite things to do whenever I'm playing the game is actually identify these little weaknesses that people have whenever they build their mechs. And that's how, I try to exploit those weaknesses. And it's like encountering a boss fight every single time where you're trying to find their weak point and hit that weak point. You can, shoot the big armor plate in the front, but if you, use some teamwork and get them to look to the side, there's this little weak point right there. And if you were to hit that just right, it would blow them all up. And so I think that's the most interesting part is how, building of the mech and then how that carries over into battle.
What game engine are you using, and why did you decide to work with it?
I'm using Unity 3D, and I decided to use it because at the time I was making everything myself, and I had used Unreal a lot professionally. And while I felt that Unreal was really, really powerful for rapid creation of assets and kind of what I was looking for, it was very, very slow. It had a lot of overhead to it. Unity at the time did not have that. And I think that Unity is still a really good choice. Now that we have more people working on the project, there's a little bit more sharing and collaboration going on, which is, I feel like, where in the past Unreal had been kind of, excelled at. So there's been a couple of hurdles with Unity, ramping it up to multiple people and everything like that. But I still think it was a good, solid choice, and I'm happy with it.
What setbacks did you encounter during the project? And do you feel like you learned anything from that?
Yeah, I've had quite a few different setbacks. I think the biggest one that all the fans of the game will know about, they've even documented in the wiki, is I actually had a really big stage of depression where I had made a release that I put out kind of in a hurry. And it was right at the time where M.A.V was getting a lot of news coverage, been covered by Rock Paper Shotgun a couple of times in a row, getting some coverage from Kotaku, and was getting ready to have a video interview with another website. And I put out this release, kind of really rushed release, and I pushed it out, and it just like broke the whole game. Like nothing worked. And it was right before the interview. The guys on the website kind of pulled up the game, and that was kind of their first initial impression of the game. And they canceled the interview, stopped replying to my emails, and then I rolled back the release and got everything kind of situated again. But it kind of sent me into a state of depression because it put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth really quickly. And it made me kind of like go, what am I doing? Up until that point, I was kind of doing everything really fast and loose. And it really made me kind of think, am I actually going to be able to do this? Are people going to care? And am I biting off more than I can chew? And it took me a while to kind of get over that hump. And I definitely learned something from it, because that's why I said, you have to stay positive in life and in game development. And there's always a way around. You can always fix mistakes. So.
Well, hopefully the people that wanted to interview will come back one day.
No, that website doesn't exist anymore. So.
Well, then that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Well, there's other websites, so that's a good thing. If you could go back in time, what would you do different?
I don't think I would have ever released on Steam. I was debating on that being the answer to the last question as well. Releasing on Steam as a distribution platform was really not an enjoyable experience at all. And so, if possible, I would not have ever done
that. Okay. That's not something I hear a lot. People that don't want to release on Steam.
Yeah, we were on Steam for almost 2 years. And then I made a really tough decision and decided that I would no longer distribute the game through Steam. I've still honored every single purchase that people made through Steam. Still, even though we've been off of Steam for almost 2 years, I still have people that contact me through the website and ask to get their account or their purchase linked, and I still get them set up and everything like that. But yeah, Steam for indie games, and you can see this a lot more now, but it was just not an enjoyable experience. It was not something that was helpful to the development of the game. It added a huge burden to updating, releasing content, slowed down the development process at a point in time where I really need to be as fast as possible. So yeah, and it didn't really help the game in any way, because M.A.V had such a large presence before it ever went on Steam. Going on Steam was not a boost in sales or anything like that a lot of people want to think it is. In fact, it was actually an overnight cut in sales because Steam started taking all of the revenue, their cut for their distribution. And then because they have such a large platform, they ended up cannibalizing the sales that we were getting through our own website. And anybody that covered the game was no longer linking to our website; they were linking to the Steam page. So it's like all of this stuff that we had worked for and built up was kind of gone overnight, and it just kind of immediately started to take a big hit. So we worked with that for quite some time, and then I made a really hard choice that I wasn't going to distribute through Steam anymore, and immediately we started recovering. And that's why I say a lot of mistakes can be fixed. We pulled the game off Steam. I had a lot of people that didn't agree with that, but I tried to do it in the most respectful way as possible. Give everybody a really long period of time so that they could migrate their account. Set up an in-game system on the last version that we released on Steam that would allow them to migrate their account themselves. And then again, have been supporting it for 2 years, helping people get their accounts migrated afterwards. So, but like I said, it immediately picked up, and we're back. We're chugging along. We're doing better than we ever were on Steam, and it's great.
Really never happened before that someone didn't have a good experience with Steam.
I think it happens a lot more than you might expect. I think a lot of people are just willing to give up that that's just what it is. And to me, that's the definition of monopoly. And if you're willing to just give up that Steam is the only option, then I think you're selling yourself short. There's a lot of possibilities in the world, and if you have a good product, people will support you no matter what platform you're on. So,
if you can advise a new indie game developer, what would you tell him?
I would tell them definitely explore your options. Heavily weigh what you're doing. If you want to go on to Steam, what partners, who you sign partnerships with. And set your expectations accordingly with all of those. I think a lot of people expect other things in the world to make them successful, and that's not the case. That they really need to focus on making a game is one thing, being a successful developer is another thing, and they really need to decide which one of those things they want to be. If they just want to make a game, then that's fine. If they want to actually do this as a job and be successful at it, they really need to think of a lot more than just making the game.
What do you feel is success for an indie game developer?
Uh, I'm sorry. What is successful for an indie game developer?
Yeah, what do you
Uh,
think is success for an indie game developer?
I don't think that I can define that. I think that the individual can is the only one that can define that. Like I said, a lot of people, success for them is just having made something, just having completed the project. I mean, in all honesty, that's a huge success in and of itself. You've already done better than a ton of people. There's so many projects that get started and never finished. So I think just making something and putting it out into the world is already a huge success. I think there's a lot of um, people don't give enough credit to how hard that is. But for what is successful for the individual, I think that that's um, really up to them. A lot of people they just um, it's kind of a hobby for them. They wanted something that they could put out and have other people play. Other people want to have it to where it replaces their day job, and I think that's a huge success as well. And other people want it even more. They want to be the next Minecraft, and I say good luck to them. I hope you achieve success. But I think success is very much defined by the individual.
To make other game developers learn, what resources would you recommend?
Doing. I think that a lot of people, the people that a lot of people learn more by trying and failing than they will by reading or any other form of learning. So just go out and do. Go out and make something. And if it's terrible, go out and make something else and keep repeating that process until it's not terrible.
200 games later.
Yeah. I mean that's how a lot of it has to work. I can't tell you how many times I've rewritten entire portions of M.A.V because the first five versions of them were pretty terrible.
But it was at least in the same game.
Hmm. Yeah, I've just kept it all in the same game.
Yeah. What do you think about the current marketing strategies in the indie game industry?
I think that there's a lot of different things going on. I think we're starting to see people pay for marketing more. But I still think that one of the more successful, and it kind of hurts me to say this, but one of the more successful has been kind of creating these almost less than truthful kind of viral stories and stuff like that. And there's actually a GDC presentation about somebody that had done this, making a Reddit post and was able to go viral with that, and then logging into other people's accounts to kind of resubmit it to other subreddits and stuff like that. And it's like that kind of stuff. Like if you're building your entire basis off of some little white lies and stuff like that, I feel like I don't want to see that become more prevalent. And I'm fearing that that is going to be kind of the next big wave that we see. I feel that there was a big spam wave where everybody would just post their game to everything, and then everybody started kind of pushing back on the spam and everything like that. And we went through a wave where it was about just get on the websites, get people to write about you, get people to write about you, and that was the kind of the big thing. And then that kind of led over to no, it's not about people writing about you anymore. It's about the YouTubers, and there was this big journalist versus YouTuber debate, and then it became about the Twitch streamers. And I feel like now it's about creating these viral stories on Reddit or Twitter and stuff like that that always have a human element to them. And I'm seeing a little bit more of people just accepting like maybe we should just pay for marketing and get good at running ads. Um, I'm kind of betting on the fact that all of that's been and what people are calling the post-truth era, where everything's kind of made up. I'm hoping that we're getting a little bit back towards journalists kind of being almost the gatekeepers of marketing, where you'll have more journalistic articles that are written a little bit more researched and nuanced, and you'll start seeing people trust those types of reviews a little bit more. So that's where I kind of think I always see things going in cycles. But maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's this huge big thing that I have no idea about. You know, social media can be kind of unusual like that.
Where do you see the indie game market going in a few years?
Oh man, where do I see it going in a few years? Man, I honestly I hope that I don't know. That's the thing that I like about indie games is that they are exploring the unknown. Um, so I think being able to tell where they're going in a few years would be kind of sad. I'm sure there'll still be platformers. I'm sure there's still going to be a lot of VR games, but um, like the reason I love indie games is because I just never know what I'm going to get. They explore the ideas that are too risky for the other studios to take on.
Did you have any gaming education in school?
No, not really. Um, I did some programming in high school and some 3D art and stuff like that. But all of my gaming education and pretty much programming education was self-taught.
Where did you grow up?
In Texas, in the United States.
Was that nice?
It's hot. It's hot.
Okay.
I'm not.
I really didn't know it's hot
so
in.
hot. Yeah, it is so hot.
Okay. Never moved to Texas. Noted. What were your childhood interests?
I obviously played a lot of video games. Loved computers. I've always loved traveling. I've been fascinated with cool places and stuff. So luckily in my life I've been able to travel quite a bit, and a lot of that's been enabled through game development. And I've always loved airplanes. You know, whenever I was a kid, I wanted to be an aerospace engineer and design and build airplanes and spaceships and stuff like that. So kind of the sci-fi mechs computer games, it's a perfect fit for me.
That was my last question. Do you
Perfect.
want to say anything else about the game yourself or your studio?
It's available now on bombdogstudios.com. You should go get it.
The link is also in the description below.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me some time.
No problem. It was enjoyable. Thank you.